Hello, everyone. Oh, there we go, that works. Lovely. I'd apologize for starting a tiny bit late. I had a disagreement with the screen. The screen had a disagreement with me, but we're all sorted with that. And I'm very glad to see you and see that you're here and see that we're getting started. Thank you very much. I know there's lots of amazing talks to go and see over the course of this conference, and 4 more right now. So thank you for choosing this one. I hope we have a good time over the next hour. My name is Nash. I'm a developer relations engineer at a company called IBM. You might have heard of it. You can find me online kind of all over the place as Phil Nash. If you hit that QR code, if you ever want to follow me, there's even more links because there's so many social networks. I love to connect with people and talk about any of this, so please do. And if you ever have any questions about what we're going to look at, I'd also happily talk to you about that as well. Of course, I'm going to be here for the rest of this event as well. It's going to be a bit of a party this evening, and I'm looking forward to that too. At IBM, I work on a few AI kind of related things. The main one is called OpenRAG. It is an open source stack for RAG applications, so a way to build chat with knowledge involved into it. I really like it because it is open source. So much, I guess IBM stuff is very much, you've got to go through salesperson to see anything about it. But OpenRAG is open source. It's actually built on top of a bunch of other open source things as well, like Dockling, which is also an IBM project and is mostly good at ingesting PDFs into text, because PDFs are the worst things in the world, unless you want to print something out. If you actually want to get the information out of it, Dockling is really cool. There's also OpenSearch, obviously open source search index, very good at doing vector search, but also keyword hybrid stuff. And then Langflow. Langflow is an open source drag and drop editor for AI flows, and Langflow allows OpenRAG to be customizable, because like RAG applications, I don't think anybody has the same needs out of a RAG application. They don't have the same data, they don't have the same users, and so being able to customize how that works is really cool. As I said, all of this is open source. I'll see a bit more of it later because since I work on it, I'm going to use it as part of the example for what we're showing. So let's start by level setting. I'd love to understand who's using kind of what in terms of AI and agents today. So give me a shout out if you are using Claude. I don't mean the code one, I mean the regular Claude. Yeah, a few people. Okay, cool. Anybody for Gemini? Almost the same. Okay. And ChatGPT? Ooh, that was, yeah, okay, big. And then Goose, anybody know Goose? No one knows Goose, all right, cool. Goose is an open source agent, so it can use any kind of underlying model. It was an open source agent that was built at Block originally, and has been handed over to the AIFF, that's the foundation that now looks after, well, Goose, but also MCP and agents.md. And then on the coding side of things, anti-gravity users. No one wants anti-gravity. Okay, cool. What's that, Cursor? Yes, Cursor? One person. Would have 2. That would have been a different thing, I reckon, a year ago. IBM Bob? That's me. I have to use that one. But it is available for you to use as well. It's an interesting one because it's built to be more capable of dealing with enterprise code bases and governance and things around that. So they're trying, as IBM tend to do, they're going after the enterprise use case and that kind of stuff. GitHub Copilot, the original, as Richard kind of said this morning in his opening keynote, that like fancy autocomplete that we got in beta in like 2021 with the first like usable version of GPT-3 as a coding thing. I believe actually at the time they called that model Codex, which is now, it's not the next one, it's that one, Codex, which is now OpenAI's coding tool, but also, yeah, so Codex users, and I did skip over, of course, Claude Code, which I'm expecting a few, yeah, okay. All of these apps are like approaches to the same problem from slightly different angles, right? They do, in fact, they all obviously have a way to interact with the model via a chat interface, and the interface is different. Sometimes we've got command lines, sometimes we've got sidebars in IDEs, sometimes it's just a chat interface. But of course, your coding agents, these ones, are mostly interested in being able to write code. They're interacting with source code all the time, writing and reading files, which is kind of cool. And obviously, coding agents are pretty amazing, I don't think. Was anybody not using a coding agent of any sort? Right, yeah, that's 100% cool. I think we all like that they're amazing. But I tell you what, hello, I have broken, there we go. Coding agents are good. These other kind of general purpose agents are kind of amazing, and it's been a weird thing in which most people have, or most of these things have worked out that actually coding is a really useful thing even for a general purpose agent. That's why OpenClaw, for example, has a coding agent, Pi, at the very bottom of it. Codex can now do computer use for just general things. Anthropic took Claude Code and expanded it to cowork because they're just like, coding plus stuff. And I've spoken to people in the past that suggest that the ability to code is absolutely key for agents to do anything, and as the models underlying them get better, their ability to just spin up and write some code to do anything will overtake the need for any of the protocols and tools and other services that we give these things today. That's an interesting one, but we'll see if that comes out. The other thing, though, is that very much all of these things are indeed just a way to generate a lot of text. And this is kind of the experience of looking at a thing, doesn't matter what it says, it's telling a story. I didn't even let it finish because it was banging on for a long time. But text, as streamed out by an AI like this, I think it's kind of boring. These chat apps are actually sort of boring. It's walls of text like that. Coding agents are doing the same with their interspersed kind of tool calls to write and read files. But all we're seeing is code. And I don't think all interactions with the world as users are ideal through typing or text or voice if you talk to your agents. A lot of us are visual people. It's good to see things, like if you are, for example, shopping. I don't know if anybody's tried to shop using an agent, but I'm not a big fan of it just describing a thing and then saying, and do you want to buy it? I'd probably like to see it. Same for booking a hotel or something, you don't just want a text description of these things. These are interactive things that we've built an entire internet, the entire web, in order to actually experience. It's exploring data. It can tell you about stuff, but if you can explore it via a visual interface of some sort, you can learn a lot more from it. Configuring things, a lot of options. Having to go through a whole back and forth conversation to pick a bunch of configuration options, boring. Checking a bunch of boxes, easy. And then viewing rich media or even real-time data. You don't want to have your model kind of just going, hey, that thing changed over and over again. That's very boring. But seeing a real-time graph or whatever is a useful thing. Some of these agents do have some things that come out visually, like if you ask to generate an image, this is what Gemini does, particularly in the case of generate an image of a man in blue jeans and an untucked black t-shirt giving a presentation at a technical conference. Yes, this is its idea of NDC Copenhagen it'll come up to in a minute. Takes a little while, doesn't it? Whee, cool. It's not me, but it tried. So we do get some ways of coming up with visual things, and most of these agents that have an image generating model at some point will allow you to do this, which I think is one of the weird things about, I guess, Anthropic, is that it never went into images or all the other things, no embedding models, so it doesn't do this. But that's it. So if we want to get to a place where these chat experiences can be more interesting, more interactive, then we have to look at what are our ways of giving extra access and tools to our agents. And those things are MCPs and skills. They both have their place. I'm not here to argue between MCP versus skills. This is not an argument. But they both have the ability to give agents tools and behaviors to augment our experience using them. MCP servers make well-defined tools available to the agent with well-defined parameters, and that kind of definition is part of its use. It makes it easier for the model to call an MCP server correctly and a tool correctly because it's very explicit about what it wants. On the other hand, that also is the argument that people have against MCPs, is that MCP servers is that they fill up your context with all this information about what it wants. On the other side, skills, will progressively disclose instructions to a model. It starts with its description, then it will read its skill.md markdown file, and then it can provide even more resources, more markdown files, scripts it can run. Often they get paired with a CLI, and it's just instructions on how to use the CLI. And it's a bit more loose. It allows the model to just kind of choose the way it approaches a problem a bit more loosely, I think, than an MCP server. But there is a bit of an argument between MCP and skills here, because for the rest of this, we're just going to be talking about MCP. Skills cannot and will not be able to do the next things we're talking about. So, screw you, skills. So, what does MCP do? There are sort of 4 things that you can define for an MCP server. There are tools, that is running functions, that is the actual activity, the behavior that we want an MCP server to allow a model to do. It can define prompts. So the MCP server can actually say, here's a useful way to interact with me. I don't know if many of them use that, but I think it's kind of interesting. There are resources. Resources are more static kind of data and context that the MCP server can offer up to the model. And then sampling is another interesting one that I don't think many things actually support. Sampling allows for the MCP server to talk back to the model and say, hey, I need a completion for this prompt here. It's going the other way. The MCP server is then prompting the model to come up with an answer. Haven't seen a lot of that. It's kind of interesting. But the MCP protocol itself is only 1.5 years old. It went through an enormous growth at the start of last year, getting very popular before skills kind of interrupted that. But there is much to learn about how we use these things and how we improve upon it. And the nice thing is it's being worked on out in the open. Like the AIFF, is the foundation that I said looks after Goose and Agents.md and MCP, work on the protocol out in the open with people. And one of the recent additions to the protocol are extensions. They have kind of landed officially, I think, in just the most recent version of the spec. And there are 2 extensions that are kind of officially running right now. And so there are groups that are working on these individual ones in the open, exploring and experimenting with how we can improve and augment the experience. So we have tasks, which actually allow for long-running operations on an MCP server. I think that's kind of useful if you ask an agent to go and do something and it's going to take a long time, you end up kind of just waiting for it. And tasks allow for it to kind of register a task, and then the agent can, or the MCP host, can just poll to see whether that's ready. And once the long-running task is done, it's injected back into the context. It can notify you of that. And that's cool. But the thing we're actually talking about today are MCP apps, which is what we're here to talk about, yes. So text is boring. Actions are interesting. But MCP extensions are making this kind of stuff interesting, I think. So what are we doing? MCP apps. They're a way to provide a UI that an MCP host, so that is the program that is running your agent, can render and let users interact with as part of the conversation. In fact, being part of the conversation is, I'm going to keep coming back to this, the absolute most important part of this, because we can always, you can always say that an MCP server could send you off, could just render a link and say, hey, hit this link, go open your browser, go do some stuff. Ooh, we got a UI. If you keep it within the agent, if you keep it within the thing itself, it becomes part of the conversation. And so MCP Apps actually is a sort of collaboration between MCP-UI, which was a community-driven experiment that was supposed to try and bring UIs to apps. I believe that was kind of taken up by Goose, the agent in the first place, because that's a very open source and ready to experiment agent. And then ChatGPT's Apps SDK. This was an SDK that was launched in their dev day in San Francisco in October last year, and led to UIs inside of ChatGPT. And this is, I think, the nice thing where we have MCP as an open standard and a protocol, because they kind of took like this existing community work, and we took this apps SDK from ChatGPT and just went, we don't want to have to write a whole new way to do UIs for every single, for Claude, for Gemini, for OpenAI. We want to be able to do this once as a standard. And that's where MCP Apps kind of came from. This is a good experiment. This is what it actually looks like in ChatGPT. You can ask Spotify to make a playlist of early 2000s punk, pop, and ska punk. Yes, my music. And it renders nicely within ChatGPT. I think that's kind of cool. And you can play this from here or add this new playlist to your thing. But you can also see at the bottom it's kind of describing what it did as well, because this wasn't just an action that has shown something, but it's also a response from the model. Booking.com is another of their kind of launch partners, I think, with ChatGPT's apps. And this is what I mean, the kind of shopping example. Like if I say, suggest me a hotel to stay in Copenhagen, it's going to go off, do a search, and we get a whole kind of Booking.com experience within ChatGPT. None of these hotels are where I'm staying. They all look very nice, though. I could change up. And you get kind of, yeah, a really nice experience with it. Like it can even open a big screen version of that. Yeah, looks cool. So, how do these MCP apps work? Well, it's a sandboxed web application. So it's made up of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, three of my favorite things. And it's sandboxed. It's loaded within an iframe, so it doesn't get to touch the rest of the agent. It's kept safely within its own frame. It says that resources. So as I spoke about earlier, the four things that MCP servers create. One is resources, those kind of static things. MCP Apps has kind of jumped on that and go, if you have a resource that is an HTML page, we'll serve that up as a UI. And it interacts via tool calls and calls to the host. So whilst there is some, if we saw on the booking one where we're loading hotels and then clicking on one, all of that kind of stuff is either like making more tool calls back to its own MCP server, or it can send things to the host to say, we chose this hotel, we're interested in this one, what do we want to do about it? And that, again, is making this UI part of the conversation. It makes it possible for the model, for the agent, to understand what you were interacting with in the visual thing, whilst you're doing a thing that would be better interactively rather than typing to it. So, how it works, as with any kind of usual MCP tool or any tool in an agent, the user will trigger it by talking to it, and some action is chosen by the agent to call an MCP tool. The tool response for an MCP app is just like a regular tool response, but a little bit extra. The little bit extra just says, hey, load this resource. We've got this HTML resource for you, this UI resource. And so the host then renders that inside, like I said, sandbox iframe. And within that sandbox iframe, within the app, you then connect to the host using, it's sort of a form of JSON RPC, but the MCP project makes a nice library available to make that easy. So let's see it in action. I'm going to start by showing you, what have we got? A very Hello World example, so we can see the code for it. So right here, I'm in VS Code with GitHub Copilot. And if I say, it's very small, the text in there, but hopefully it'll come up bigger in the chat. We can say, say hello to NDC Copenhagen. It's always interesting to see whether it picks the tool or not. I always say don't work with children, animals, or agents. But in the meantime, yes, it's doing it. This is using GPT-5 Mini, which is one of the smaller things I can use, but, VS Code is or Copilot in VS Code is very into making to-do lists. Thanks, guys. Use your Hello World tool to do that. So if I'm a bit more explicit about what I want, hopefully we'll get it to do so. Executing to, it seems that we're starting with a to-do list. Yes, okay. It does have it's very wordly. There we go. Hey, so the red text there is an H1 with a style of red, and we got hello NDC Copenhagen from it. So that is my very simple UI in this particular case. I like that it's also notified of us our progress. Thanks GPT-5. So what is that actually doing? Let's go back there. It all can kind of fit on a bunch of screens that you can hopefully read, which is kind of nice. So in this particular case, we start by defining a resource URI for it, using the UI protocol, and then we give it a tool definition. Like in any other tool call, any other MCP server, we get a definition which has a title and a description that help the agent choose whether to use it or not. We then have the input schema, which we'll see on another slide, which just defines what are the inputs for this tool. And then the final bit for MCP apps is under this underscore meta property, where we have UI and then the resource URI pointing to that HTML. The tool schema definition is pretty much just JSON schema to tell you what the arguments to the tool are. So in this case, there's just a name property which we need to give in. The default is world, but any string will do, and it's required. The tool code is obviously very simple. Like, it does just print the word hello, insert a name here, and that's fine. We return that as content, a type text. That's fine as well. This kind of stuff will all get delivered not only to the agent, but actually to our MCP app as well. And so this genuinely is all the HTML I have in that thing. Like I said, it's the simplest of things we could see. But it's just a straight-up HTML page. We have an H1 on the page, which, as I said, is red, so we can show that it's definitely different. And a script pointing to the JavaScript. Actually, in the case of the app I built, I'm using Vite to put it all together, and it actually gets bundled into one HTML file. So whilst there's a separate script and HTML file in this case, it's deployed as a single file. But the JavaScript then looks like this. We import the app object from the model context protocol extapps package. And that is the thing that we're going to use to communicate between our application and the host. So we, in this case, there's a little bit of like, over here. And that doesn't work. All right. We get the title element so that we can add something to it. We connect to the app. That's where our HTML is going to connect to our host. And once it's done that, we can start listening to some events. We listen to the tool result event. And so once we are connected, the host, the MCP host, will fire this event to us and tell us the result of calling the tool. So in this case, it's just this, whatever the hello name that comes out. And so in that case, we can take that, inject it into the H1, and we're done. So this is the simplest of possible. Actually, it's not the simplest of possible. We could have just rendered HTML, but it's the second simplest MCP app we could create. In this case, we're just going to take the result of the tool and pop it into the page. Nice. So the important thing here is that our application now knows what was being asked of the MCP server and what the result was, and we can talk back and forth to the host about it. Let's see something a little bit more complicated. Let's get out of that. And go away. I was going to have OpenRAG running, so let's just have a quick look at that. Because OpenRAG is, again, it's just a RAG tool. It does three things. One is you can ask it chat questions, because why not? Its important part really is knowledge, right? That's where we ingest files. It goes through Dockling and into OpenSearch. And so that's kind of what we're going to use in this. In this case, I've got a couple of documents about Dockling itself, which I can ask questions of it. That's nice. There are also some settings. There's a few things about OpenRAG which I think are cool. Like, you can actually just connect it to an external data source, and it will sync for you. And you can pick whatever kind of model providers you want for your agent and for your embedding models and stuff like that. OpenRAG does have an MCP server, and I decided to write my own for this because that one doesn't currently do an MCP app. and it's also written in Python, and I don't want to deal with that. So I wrote one in JavaScript instead, and it is available within my VS Code session. So I'm going to create a new session for this. And what can we use it for? What OpenRAG tools do you have? It should tell me, I think there's 3. Technically, that Hello World tool lives under this MCP server as well. But there is OpenRAG Chat and OpenRAG Search Query. Yeah. Oh, you are wordy, GitHub. Come on. Yeah, so we've got this MCP OpenRAG chat, so I can actually interact directly with the agent that lives inside OpenRAG. I've got the search query, which is going to do that semantic search, and then there's the Hello World one, which we've seen. So let's search for Dockling models through OpenRAG. And so this search has an MCP app on the back of it, and it's a little bit more interactive, a little bit more interesting than just the Hello World one. It's going to give us access to both see the search results in a bit more visual way than just talking to the model would, but it's going to give us the ability to do further searches and add context to the thing. And so here, almost doing it. Come on. Yeah. Okay. So VS Code has been playing around with me. And so it kind of like half managed to load that, which is annoying. But if I go and do the search again, we should get an actual search result. Yeah, cool. So this application, yeah, is living now within VS Code at this point. And I'm allowed to query stuff, and we get some results. So these are the sort of chunks of semantic saved data from the things. So that hasn't currently been sent back to the model, to the agent. It doesn't know about these search results because it got cancelled somewhere halfway through. But what we can do is add sort of this context. So what was I asking? There's layout analysis. So if I add that to the context, oops, I've added that to the context, and it's really very small because VS Code. But right down here, there's a little thing that says search result added. So that's actually just preparing the context when I next send a message to the model to include this particular chunk. So if I can say what were the 2 models, it should answer based on that context. Considering, yes. We'll see what it says about that. It's probably going to have to make a to-do list for it first. There we go, cool. It's done it. Yes, it didn't have to go off and search again. There's a layout analysis model and there's table former, and that is true. Okay, so VS Code is also very energetic about removing the thing once we scroll past it. So if I go back to Dockling models, it was this thing, and yeah, we had a layout analysis model, it said here, and then the second model is table format. Cool. So, yeah, what I got there was the ability to interact with my third-party service via searching inside of the UI itself, and then adding context back to the agent itself. Yeah, let's get back to that. And once again, the interaction, all of the interaction that we do is proxied via the host so that the model can kind of take part in this. It can understand stuff. And so there are more abilities to this. So in this case, an MCP app can call server tools. So most of the interaction you make available via the MCP thing. So it really is doing only the things that the agent would be able to do as well. In the case of searching in that example, that was just calling the tool via the MCP server. And so it goes via the host off to the MCP server, and all the information comes back through. You can send messages to the chat. So that's where you really take the interaction between the UI and the model further. That's when you send a message, it's actually triggering the model to answer that kind of thing. But as an example, you can also just send content to the chat without sending a message, just kind of queues it up. And I think if you, I believe if you update the model context, that's the update model context is the function there. If you do that a bunch of times, it will actually only be the last one that gets added. So you might want to, within the UI, kind of, if you want to add a bunch of different things to the context, like kind of handle creating a basket of content that you're going to give the model. MCP Apps can also request a completion from the model itself, so it can do sampling much like a regular MCP server can. You can load external scripts and resources. So in, for example, like either the Spotify or the booking example on ChatGPT, they're both loading images from either the playlist or from the hotels. And that kind of stuff can be controlled with a content security policy, CSP. So you can make domains available to load things from. But it's still not there for like making requests to. All of that still should go through the host, go through the tools. And then another thing, because it's sandbox, because it's trapped within this little iframe, like opening links or downloading files is something you kind of have to ask the host to do as well. So you're like, please open this link. And if it turns out that your MCP-UI is trying to scam people, the host can be like, that looks dodgy, I won't let you do that, which is nice. But so yeah, so you have to ask to be able to break out of the sandbox in any way. Support for this is not across the board, as you might be unsurprised to find out. It's available in Claude and Claude Desktop. They jumped on, because Anthropic came up with the MCP protocol in the first place, when the extensions came up, they sort of jumped on that to support it. Of course, in VS Code, GitHub Copilot, that's what we've seen it working in today. It's also in Goose. I'm sort of sad that nobody had seen Goose, because it does exist. There we are. It looks quite nice. It works quite well. I've currently got it hooked up to GPT 5.5, so I can say, I think this one will actually work. Search OpenRAG for Duckling models. And yeah, there's Goose. Woo. See, that loaded fine the first time. So I think this support for this stuff is also like slightly flaky in different clients as well, because it's all very new. So we got a whole bunch of like answers from the thing, but we also get this existing search results. Love that. And then I can do searching for other things like PDFs. They're awful. Several parser backends to read and interpret different formats of PDF. Yeah, cool. So that's Goose. It actually genuinely is a nice thing to use, and you get to choose whatever underlying model you want to with it, and it's open source. Also, there's support for it in Postman. I didn't know Postman was an entire agent, but apparently it not only supports being an agent, but MCP apps as well. Also, MCP Jam and Orchestra.ai. I know what neither of those are, but they support this. And then ChatGPT, after having released the Apps SDK, did agree to work on the protocol of MCP Apps and MCP. And so I believe that whilst there is still a separate way that you can build where you can build ChatGPT apps, you can also do it via the MCP Apps SDK, the MCP Apps way as well, and that will likely be the way to do so in the future. So I'm really pleased. I'm a web developer by heart, and I absolutely love open standards that allow people to work together to come to a good way of doing things that work across the board, so we don't have to do our work in multiple different ways. I'm so genuinely pleased that MCP has been doing this, and continues to evolve like this. Cool, so there are some resources for this. I will put out my example MCP server as well. I just haven't yet pushed it to GitHub because it's annoying. But if you, I'm Phil Nash on GitHub if you want to follow that at all. But on the MCP site, there's plenty of good documentation about how to build apps right there. And then on their GitHub, under the ext apps repository, there is a whole bunch of examples which go from the very simple to, I think there's like a 3D globe visualization, just to show that, it doesn't have to just be a regular website. You can do a lot of stuff with it. Visualizing data, visualizing things is really cool. I'd note that also, I think for like really interactive applications, things like Canva and Frame are both have ChatGPT apps at least, so you can actually do your entire design work within the location of an agent, which I think is kind of really interesting. And then if you do want to build your own MCP apps, the MCP team put together agent skills, ironically not an MCP server, but put together agent skills which actually define how to build it and will help guide a coding agent to do so. So you don't even need to know what the code looks like if you don't want to. There's whole skills for doing that. NPX skills is just the Vercel way of installing them, but you can get them off the repo or use it in any way you want to. So yeah, I think we have this opportunity with MCP apps. I think it's been popular enough, at least with the clients that have implemented it, or sorry, the hosts that have implemented it, and the early people that have built it into things like ChatGPT, that this is going to be an extension that I think will be promoted to full-time MCP protocol, and we're going to see a bit more of this. I think that's great because, as I said at the start, big long walls of text are not the best way to interact with everything. And so us being able to provide ways for people to interact visually with our data, with our stores, with our commerce, with everything, is going to, I think, change the game. And this is a little bit, I think this is a little bit like getting in on that ground floor of like building that first mobile app. If you're the first person in the Apple App Store or Google Play Store, and you can be a logo on people's phones, then you did very well in that case. If you are, it becomes very sticky if you are the MCP server that has been implemented into somebody's, installed into somebody's agent. They're going to use you and your interesting ways of interacting with things. Like I think Booking.com is going to do very well out of being able to like book things directly within ChatGPT. And so I really would like to see people just make chats and make agents more interactive, make them more interesting, get rid of boring text, and bring in this kind of new future of interacting with agents. That's what I'd love to see you build as well. And so please, if you ever do build something like this, get in touch with me. I would love to hear about it. I would love to share it with other people. That's all I've got for you on MCP apps. I just wanted to just say one more thing, that again, OpenRAG and Docling and all those things are open source, and if you're at all interested in using those as well, or getting involved with that, then that's just, I think, that QR code takes you through to the GitHub, because it's an open source project, and I want to see people install it and use it and have fun with it. And other than that, again, my name's Nash. I am Developer Relations Engineer at IBM, and I really want to see you build MCP apps. Thank you very much.